Welcome to RSBN Tonight. I'm Adam Taxon, here at our studio in Alabama. We're still getting a lot of things in place, including maybe a co-host for me. If you know someone interested in that position, get in touch. We're considering this particular show another test, and we're still working out graphics, lighting, other technical guando, and even some granular with our online service provider, et cetera, et cetera. But even though this is officially a test, we feel really good about the information with which we're providing you. We're also testing the back and forth between me and Steve and the other people helping writing the show. So bear with us. No live commercials tonight. That may change tomorrow. Like everything else, it takes testing to get the commercial breaks right. And we'll get to that soon. And of course, we have an incentive to do that because that means ad revenue. And on the subject of revenue, we are so appreciative of the RSBN donors and what you've enabled us to do, including this studio here, which you can't see because we have a screen on there. But we appreciate that, and we also want to do our best. You've been generous so far. Keep it coming, please. But we want to earn as much revenue as we can on our own until we grow really big, and then maybe we won't even need donors anymore. But for now, we need the donors, and thank you. Plus, the good thing about commercial breaks is I can have a sip of water during them. I don't like flubbing words, and when my mouth gets too dry, especially before I get that co-host and before we do commercials, the water is helpful. So, on to our lead story tonight, the Electoral College. Today, Donald Trump's victory on November 8th became official. We here at RSBN, we don't pretend to be unbiased, so yeah, we're psyched about it. Hey, get up and go get yourself a stiff drink if you want to celebrate along with me. I'm only going to have water, no stiff drink here right now. But it's not like I'm going to say anything so important in the next minute. So go do what you want to have, do what you wanted to celebrate. And by the way, if I do end up saying something important, you can always go back. Let me make a pitch here for the great archives we have here at Right Side Broadcasting for this show and so many other shows. We have a lot more in the archives for the other shows because we just started this one. So the story. The Electoral College. The shenanigans did not work. Whatever was going on behind the attempted Jill Stein, Hillary Clinton, George Soros recount in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, but of course not in Nevada, no need to recount there. And of course in Michigan, we're going to lay low once we get to Detroit because there might be some things found out there that wouldn't be so good for a lot of people to know. But all of that did not come to fruition. Well, it did come to fruition in one way. I think Jill Stein kept the money. Pretty sneaky, sis. What else didn't work? The faithless elector thing, that didn't work. The threats and phone harassment and following them in a vehicle of electors, that didn't work. Probably most engagingly for me. Remember that so-called Republican in Texas who was so proud of himself, Chris Suprin? It turns out he was bankrupt, so there were some incentives there, if you know what I mean. He also lied about being a 9/11 first responder. He didn't even started working anywhere near there till October 2001. But he had that very sobering op-ed in the New York Times about how his conscience couldn't let him vote for Trump, and it would be so much better for integrity and whatever if we got the guy who ate pizza with a fork and whose dad was a mailman. Well, anyhow, so he wrote the op-ed in the New York Times. And I got to ask, New York Times, fake news much? Yeah. What other things didn't work? The whole, I don't do a good Jan Brady voice, but Russia, that didn't work. So, in summary, basically barring something tragic, Donald Trump will become the 45th president of the United States 32 days from now. Now, Trump, we love him here. He's calling his victory a landslide. But we're pretty much among friends here, and we're used to his puffery and love him anyway. It's just part of the Donald. It wasn't really a landslide. And I'm going to give you some specific facts so you sound like you know what you're talking about. And yes, I'm reading off a teleprompter for this part. Trump was barring one or two faithless electors here and there. And by the way, there were more faithless electors for Hillary, I think. There were 4 just in the state of Wisconsin who wanted to vote for the son of the mailman. But Trump was to receive 56.9% of the electoral vote. That's excluding the so-called faithless electors. And we'll have the final tally soon. But that 56.9% is the 44th largest share of the electoral vote out of the 54 presidential elections since this all started, which I think was in 1804, that we started doing it this way. That amount is more than President George W. Bush, who not only in 2000, but in 2004 against Kerry. We all know about 2000. It was also more than Richard Nixon, who we associate with landslides because of 1972, the Watergate controversy election. But it was more than Nixon got in 68 against Hubert Humphrey, I think it was. Not in the teleprompter. More than JFK. And we know about the JFK-Nixon election in 1960, the questionable stuff that went on in Illinois. So needless to say, even though it was a fairly comfortable margin because Illinois had so many electoral votes even back then, but Trump won by more than JFK. It was more than Jimmy Carter in 1976, not that we like him so much here, more than Progressive Hero in 1916, and more even than a Democrat. That is my first answer if you ask me who the best Democrat president was. Grover Cleveland, 1884. So moving on, as leftists and the so-called mainstream media like to point out, Hillary did indeed win the popular vote, but all of that margin is attributable to one state, one particularly bizarre state if you follow the trends over there, but that's California. And who, of course, knows what the reality is if you took away fraud and illegal voting in California and in so many places, not just Detroit. Interestingly, just a little bit more factual numerical information here. The margin by which Trump lost the popular vote seems like a lot, but it's not the largest by a winner. Larger was Rutherford B. Hayes' popular vote loss in 1876 to Samuel Tilden. And interestingly, that compromise involved in resolving 1876, a lot was involved there, and much more than with Trump and Hillary. That involved stuff that led to the end of Reconstruction and going right along with that, the start of Jim Crow. And 1824, that's a whole different ballgame. John Quincy Adams, in that one, JQA got fewer electoral votes and fewer popular votes than Andrew Jackson, but because there was a third-party candidate named Crawford, no one came close to getting a majority. Adams ended up winning that election in the House of Representatives, 13 state delegations voting for him, 7 for Jackson, 3 for Crawford. And that is enough history lesson right there. But some great water cooler facts for you. Oh yeah, there were some protesters there at at various state houses. Hey, ho, ho, whatever. They weren't significant. And we're not going to give them any more attention than they've gotten so far. So in summary, and I just like saying this, so I'm going to say it again, the Electoral College, Donald Trump is going to be president, barring something tragic happening. Too bad, so sad, leftists and never Trump rhinos. Find something else to I got to say that one right. Find something else to whine about. All right, more soberly. There were 2 big stories today related to terrorism, and that is the new normal that European nations have to deal with regularly these days. In Germany today, a truck, of course, drove through a crowded Christmas market in Berlin. What are we up to now? 12 people killed, at least 50 injured. Those were the numbers just a little while before we went on. That number, of course, is probably rising. Plenty of people hospitalized. The witnesses, they described it as a deliberate attack. And this only just came out. The word is that the truck driver was reportedly a refugee, some sort of Polish connection. It might just be that the car that was stolen was from Poland. Poland doesn't take in the refugees. The people there really don't want them, and this isn't going to help that cause. This attack, of course, calls to mind the much deadlier attack in Nice, France this past summer. 84 people were killed there, again, driving through a crowd. And yes, I know, some out there are probably even more upset about the fact that it's called a Christmas market rather than a holiday market or a winter solstice market. Not RSBN viewers, by and large. But they're more upset about that, inevitably, than the carnage involving presumably predominantly Europeans that took place. Initial reports there, 2 people involved. 1 has been killed, but this is really developing now. The police are doing an investigation. Oh, coincidentally, not so coincidentally, I saw a story earlier today, maybe yesterday. It was talking about how Germany apparently has taken in more so-called Syrians, so-called refugees than the rest of the world combined. Needless to say, how's that working out for you? So if you're trying to find a motive, when this passes a day or so from now, you're going to want to talk about Ironically, workplace violence, or the Confederate flag, or marital disharmony, or Sarah Palin putting election priorities on a map. See, these are comments you're not going to get on big media newscasts, not even Fox News. But big media, of course, is doing its best to avoid the subject of Islam with all of this. And CNN, MSNBC, I'm not exactly watching them nonstop, but are they perplexed yet about what the motive could possibly have been? And you know what's amazing? They have the chutzpah to slam others for reporting so-called fake news. And we're going to have commercials in the future. I'm just taking 5 seconds to get my mouth a little wetter. Test run, you know? Okay, a story from this morning. As you all probably have heard, Russia's ambassador to Turkey, a man named Andrei Karlov, who definitely paid his dues in the industry. He was the ambassador to North Korea earlier in his career. He was assassinated today in the Turkish capital of Ankara by a 22-year-old off-duty policeman named Mevlut Mert Altintas. This was as he was there speaking at an art exhibit called Russia Through the Eyes of Turks. CNN, of course, is referring to him as a gunman. It's not that strange, but I just want you to think how interesting it is that the emphasis is on the gun. This assassination was apparently linked to the Russia's role in the Syrian civil war. The assassin predictably shouted "Al Akbar" quite a few times, and he also, in addition to that, screamed about Aleppo. And that's been in the news a few days ago, even included in our last broadcast. That's the Syrian city where rebels were recently defeated by the pro-Russian, or the Russian-backed Assad regime. I imagine they'd be pro-whomever is backing them. 15 minutes after the initial attack, by the way, the 22-year-old assassin was killed by security forces. Now, let me give you a little more background, and we're not going to be doing this for every story. Some toward the end, we're going to go right through. Last year, as you may remember, Turkey shot down a Russian fighter jet over Syria. It's unclear what really went on there, whether Russia was violating the airspace or making a habit of regularly violating the airspace. We don't know. But there have been a lot of reconciliation efforts recently between Russia and Turkey. And along those lines, Turkish President Erdogan very much apologized. He apparently called Russian President Vladimir Putin to share information after the assassination. And Putin referred to the assassination of the Russian ambassador as a clear provocation aimed at derailing the Syrian peace negotiations. Now, some Turkish security officials and Erdogan, they're saying that the assassin was linked to the exiled Turkish cleric Fethullah Gulen. He is exiled again. In fact, he's based in the Pocono Mountains, and they accused him of orchestrating a failed coup in July. Gulen's spokesman, I will add, describes that accusation not only as false, but as laughable. Okay, I'm going to periodically on this show mention websites, tweets, Facebooks. This is a different kind of news broadcast. And here I'm going to thank Tyler Durden. We believe, there's so much, even beyond fake news right now, things that are stolen. I call it neo-plagiarism. So I'm very careful to give credit here. It may even get annoying to hear it, but I'm going to give credit to Tyler Durden at zerohedge.com. That's one you really should bookmark. If you like us, that's the kind of page you're really going to like. They do great work. So from Zero Hedge, we have this. A woman named Elena Suponina. She is the senior analyst at the Russian Institute of Strategic Studies, and they advise the Kremlin. She said that this attack will actually only bring Russia and Turkey closer together, because it shows that they have a common enemy, terrorism. And only by joining forces can we deal with this enemy. Maybe that's a little overstated, but that's what she said. So clearly, if you're out there trying to make a Franz Ferdinand, Serbia, Austria-Hungary, start of World War I type situation, I don't think we're heading that way. While Putin is unlikely to burn bridges with Turkey, he is, however, very likely to adopt a tougher stance in Syria against the rebels. And that's according to Nihat Ali Özkan, an analyst at, this is in Turkey, the Economic Policy Research Foundation in Ankara. Russia may still be talking to Turkey at the table, but it will probably have a much more aggressive stance on the ground in Syria. So that's a key takeaway. Zero Hedge also mentions this, these following points, which I think are important. The tougher Russian stance toward Turkey could delay the return of Russian tourists. Tourism is big in the the Turkish economy, and Russia is fairly close to Turkey, so like Israel, a lot of people go to Turkey for vacation. The attack also highlights the fragile security situation in Turkey, where they've had terrorism attacks within Turkey the last few days. Dozens of security personnel have been killed there. There's a conflict, and the Kurds are also involved in that, but I don't think the separatist Kurds have anything in particular against Russia. Again, this is thanks to ZeroHedge.com. One more thing from them. The incident is unlikely to change what's going on in Syria very much. At least that is according to a man named, or might be a woman, named Iham Kamel, and that is the director of Middle East and North Africa at Eurasia. No commercials, remember, so I'm allowed to do that today, not in the future. Time for the ever-important global warming update. Very important this time of year. This weekend, on Sunday to be specific, the average temperature in the lower 48 states, I guess they have enough of a cross-section that they can call it an overall average, it was 16 degrees. And that is significant because it is a colder average national daily temperature than it was any time during last winter. And let's keep in mind, it's not apples to oranges here, because it's not even winter yet. That's 2 days away, the solstice. And the coldest part of the year really isn't for another 6 weeks on average. What is it? What do you call them? The chlorofluorocarbons? I don't know. And we have limited time, so we're not even bothering getting into the snow or getting into the minus 30-something temperatures. I don't even know what that is like. Coldest temperature for me ever was maybe 6 years ago. I happened to be in Rock Island, Illinois, minus 12 degrees. I think it's colder than that, where the mother of Joe Seals and our music director, Jacob Seals, lives out in eastern Iowa. I think they got colder than that today. It's not even winter, guys. That's what it is in the upper west, even the Midwest, like around Chicago, it's getting in the minus 20s. There was a horrible truck accident and a 55-car pileup near Baltimore. All right, but minimally related to that, there is some exciting news for New Yorkers, and I'm going to get better with these transitions, but work with me here. The 2nd Avenue subway, that's on the east side of Manhattan, pretty far on the east side of Manhattan. That is reopening at noon on New Year's Day. Now, that'll be very nice because when you're in Manhattan, it can be a long walk in the cold and wind near the East River. By the time you get from Lexington, 3rd Avenue, which is where the east side subway is, to get down to like York Avenue. Okay, getting esoteric, a lot of our audience is really not too into Manhattan. But what you have there is 8.5 brand new miles of tracks, and so if you want a man spread or you want to talk loudly on your cell phone 2 inches away from the person next to you, you have a new line on which you can do that. But, you know, I know what some of you were thinking, and I thought it too. And Steve Lookner, our new guy who wrote so much of this, had a thought that, well, wait a minute. Remember the predictions about global warming just a decade or two ago? By 2017, wouldn't January, why bother taking the subway? I mean, wouldn't this be the ideal time for a pleasant walk in 67-degree weather, at least in the parts of Manhattan that aren't underwater? Just saying. Just saying. But, I mean, do they even need the subway in the winter because of the global warming? Obviously, in July and August, they'll need it. Another beneficiary of all this that we shouldn't forget, those proud Upper East Side liberals who blame everything on the rich, even though they live in multi-million-dollar 2nd Avenue condos. Do they really live on 2nd Avenue or Park Avenue? I don't know. Steve, you got to check that part of the transcript. The day that subway opens, even if they are limousine types and wouldn't be caught dead with those people on the subways, their property will go up, or the properties they own, on the east side go up, even if they don't live there. They have even more money then to throw away on Paul Begala's latest super PAC. Okay, the NFL. Let me just sneak in one more of these. Oh, these commercials are going to be great. Enjoy this now, because we are going to be sticking them in there. The NFL, it's been in the news, it's been much maligned. Interesting thing, there was a headline on Drudge that was overstated and said, ratings bounce back. Well, they're down 10% overall through the first 14 weeks of the NFL season. Now, there was a backlash, especially among us conservatives, to the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, but it's a little bit better now than it was. Obviously, the weather was particularly cold, which is good for TV watching and especially watching your team on TV rather than going to a game. That's one factor. But I'm going to analyze this ad lib for a second. So you had the Colin Kaepernick thing there. But NFL boycott, the hashtag NFL boycott, the air came out of that for a number of reasons. One, some players didn't stand up for the flag. None of them gave the flag the middle finger or anything. But it was a few. It was 99% of players at least who did respect it. And they didn't even have to make a choice in the past. They just automatically did it. Now they thought about it. 99% of the players just, and I'm making that number up, stood and saluted the flag. And yeah, 98% of black players too. That's 70% of the NFL. So I think that occurred to a lot of people. But more importantly, with Colin Kaepernick, have you looked at the San Francisco 49ers record? They're 1-13. 3 years ago, they were one Richard Sherman deflected pass away from going to their second straight Super Bowl. They made the NFC Championship 3 straight years. They're 1-13 right now. It's kind of funny because Chip Kelly was a disaster in Philly as the coach. Big ego, all that. And, he's the coach of the 49ers there, and I have a feeling he won't be the coach. But I'm getting off course here. So that is a factor. But let me analyze this a little bit more. People also, I think, were a little fed up about the breast cancer awareness thing that they just did it, and they're taking that back a notch next year. They already announced that. And I don't think the Michael Sand thing really went over that well, and ESPN really stuck that in our face, and it was enough already with the politics. Let us watch football. But one factor people are not thinking about, and I've been in Las Vegas, I've talked to the bookies, I have pretty good information that the three most popular teams in America, betting-wise, and that's a good proxy for how popular they are overall, are number one, the Pittsburgh Steelers, number two, the Patriots, number three, the Dallas Cowboys. They're all having really good years. Frankly, the Patriots always have a good year. The Steelers generally are fairly competitive. The Cowboys haven't been that good for a while, but whatever improvement in ratings could just be the fact that the Dallas Cowboys are 12-2. And by the way, the New York Giants may not have a huge following, but there are a lot of New York Giants fans in the New York area, and there are a lot of people in the New York area. They're having a really good year. And the Oakland Raiders are back. When they're half decent, they have a pretty big national following. So that in itself may be a factor. Look, it's better for the league for the Dallas Cowboys to be the dominant team in the NFC than the Carolina Panthers. No disrespect to them. Enough about football. Let's get to another part of the mainstream media. A&E. And this was once a highbrow cable network. They probably even showed classical music on there. But what are they doing now? They're doing a reality show about the Ku Klux Klan called Generation KKK. Is there a word for clickbait for TV programming? This is the kind of wonderful entertainment you continue to be given by the mainstream media, which RSBN, I remind you, is not. And thanks again to our donors. I just stick that in obligatorily whenever I can. No, the word's gratuitously. I stick it in. So what are they going to do with this? I don't know. I didn't have enough time to prepare before the show. Maybe they can have a special flashback episode with, I'm going to pause. I know I'm going to let some of you guess what I'm going to say now. Maybe they'll have a special flashback with Senator Robert Byrd. No. Sorry, I flubbed that. Democrat Senator Robert Byrd. Proud Democrat hero Senator Robert Byrd. How can I say that? What next? I'm going to point out that the KKK was a Democrat organization? Hold on. Oh, wait. Are some people saying, why would Hillary Clinton's friend and mentor be on a KKK reality show? Well, he's dead, so he's not going to be on it, but maybe it'll be a flashback. I don't know. It's a good question. If you have your liberal head in the sand, though, and you don't know anything about Robert Byrd's history, there's Wikipedia, but if you want to hear me tell you, I'm about to. Before friend and mentor Robert Byrd, Hillary's friend and mentor Robert Byrd was in the Senate back in West Virginia. He was friending and mentoring it up in the KKK. The important people in town. He friended and recruited 150 new members. Not one new member, 150 new members. I don't even think David Duke, who probably was never even that popular, I think he rubbed even KKK members the wrong way. I don't think he even recruited 150 new members. Byrd, he served as leader of his Klan unit, and a position I'm sure Hillary Clinton knows is called Exalted Cyclops. So if they do that Byrd flashback episode, I hope, well, come on, man. I hope it's the reality show that the guy gets a flamboyantly gay roommate. So, you know what? We got time. It's a test run. No commercial pressure. Let's have some more info about legendary Democrat Robert Byrd and his KKK background. So we went over how he recruited 150 new members to his chapter in Sophia, West Virginia. The proud Democrat Robert Byrd did. And the context for all this is the A&E reality show about the KKK. In December 1944, by the way, Byrd wrote to a man named Senator Theodore G. Bilbo. He wrote, and I'm not going to try to do a West Virginia accent. I don't even know what that sounds like exactly, but it's a unique one. He wrote, "I shall never fight in the armed forces with a Negro by my side. Rather, I should die 1,000 times and see Old Glory trampled in the dirt, never to rise again, than to see this beloved land of ours becoming degraded by race mongrels. A throwback to the blackest specimen from the wild." That's, again, Hillary's friend and mentor, Robert Byrd, perhaps the subject of the new A&E reality series on the KKK. But let's go on. In 1946, Byrd wrote a letter to a grand wizard of the KKK stating, "The Klan is needed today as never before, and I am anxious to see its rebirth here in West Virginia and in every state in the nation." He later protested in 1952. He saw the light when he was running for the Congress. He wrote very piously, "After about a year, I became disinterested, quit paying my dues, and dropped my membership in the organization. During the 9 years that have followed, I've never been interested in the Klan." Now, moving on, we have some breaking news in education, or what once was education. Up till now, your son or daughter or non-gendered child or varying gender child had to wait until college to be taught how to stifle opposing views and express indignation rather than engage in rational argument. But all that changed this past week. They brought it down a little bit to a Connecticut high school. So progressive there. A principal at East Hampton High, not to be confused with the East Hampton, very expensive part of Long Island. The principal there, whose color, I'm really not making this up. This is not The Onion. The colors there are blue and white. Yep, they ban the word white from the school's cheers, done by cheerleaders. The principal, a man named Paul Smith, said, I'm going to say this with a straight face to the best I can. He said the ban was justified given the current social climate across the country. Yeah, I agree with him. If by current social climate he means the current antisocial, anti-tolerant, anti-freedom climate embraced by seemingly everyone who works in higher education or too many of the local school systems which are supposed to be accountable to school boards that elect them. Though Connecticut, who knows what the school board is like. It's pretty liberal there. So I can't wait till they reinstate the cheer, but what are they going to do? Make them say cis white instead? I had living here just a few headlines on my mind. Just looking at the bullet points when I look at the teleprompter. Uber in the news. There was a stabbing in Beverly Hills, Michigan. That is correct. There was a Beverly Hills, Michigan. There's also a Beverly Hills, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, near where I'm from. I don't even know why. Is there a Beverly Hills in England that so many are named for? I have no idea. But there seem to be a lot of Beverly Hills. There's some in some other state, too. But in Beverly Hills, Michigan, a guy stabbed... the Uber driver stabbed... I wish we had gotten a picture of this guy. It's worth Googling just for the picture. He stabbed his driver a few times. The guy was knocking on the window, and he thought the man was disrespecting his car. So be a little careful with Uber. Also, Uber news, and this only applies if you're in the UK, but it makes sense to me. Uber customers have been offered drugs by drivers. Pretty clever. I mean, who knows how much money's been made that way, but someone got caught doing it. Other news, Sony Pictures, or Sony Entertainment, which I have some experience for. If you want, Google my Jeopardy episodes on YouTube, Adam Tax and Jeopardy. And by the way, it took a while for them to pay me after I won on there a couple times. But not to digress, they're doing some reboots, 6-episode anthologies. I think the first one is going to be One Day at a Time. That, we all like Valerie, all us guys growing up like Valerie Bertinelli. They're also going to do the Jeffersons. I doubt they'll put in the parts where the Sherman Hemsley character, George Jefferson, said the N-word. I don't think that's going to make the cut in 2017. Also, All in the Family. These are Norman Lear shows, Big Liberal. What's that thing? People for the American Way. So they're doing anything. There's a lot. Oh, man. Steve Luckner just came over here, our new guy. He was sick of Hollywood, and he has stories, but there's so much little originality, and this is just going with that. Rather than create new, good programming, it's like the movies. They just are rebooting an old one. And let's be honest, All in the Family in particular was so perfect as it was. The Jefferson was so perfect as it was. By the way, if I remember correctly, the One Day at a Time, they're going to make it it was a single mom to begin with, and I think they're going to make it a Latino family. That seems to be a trend in Hollywood. Okay, The College Fix, another one you should bookmark. They do great stuff about the liberal stuff in higher education. Wait. I thought of something. I got to put in a pitch for our new show, which debuts Thursday night. Perfect timing. Why didn't we think about that when we wrote the notes? Raised Right starts with Cassie Dillon and Will Nardi. Thank you. That starts Thursday night here on RSBN. Make sure to watch it. Okay, but on the subject of college, there's a class to be taught next semester at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Maybe if we get enough donations with that specific purpose, we'll send them to sneak in there. But it's called, I'm not making this up, The Problem of Whiteness. And they want to understand how whiteness is socially constructed and experienced, and that is in order to help dismantle white supremacy. That's all according to the course description. And it's taught by a scholar who is an assistant professor named Damon Sajnani. He told The College Fix, again, we give credit here, we don't steal others' material. He told The College Fix that whites rarely or never questioned what it is to be white. So you go through life taking it for granted without ever questioning or critically examining it. There's a reading list there. W.E.B. Du Bois, predictably enough, okay, he's legit. I mean, he's a pretty famous scholar. But let's look at some of the other things the young pupils will be tackling. There's a 2010 book by a George Yancey called Look, a White. These are people who are probably not going to read Milton at any point during their college experience. There's a reading by the eminent Ta-Nehisi Coates, as if he's not on MSNBC enough. What do you know? There's a reading there by Assistant Professor Damon Sajnani, who happens to be teaching the course, and you gotta love this title, Racial Theory. No, I'm not making this up. It's called Racial Theory. Reverse passing in the curious case of Rachel Dolezal. I mean, could you imagine? You don't have to spend as much money because it's a state school, but spending that money to learn about Rachel Dolezal? Google her if you don't know her. She's the woman, the female version of Sean King, trying to pass herself off as black. And there's the rare, good Caucasian person, Tim Wise, who is a regular speaker on college campuses, collecting fees all the time. Thanks, taxpayers. His book on the reading list, this is Tim Wise. Google him if you want. White Lies Matter. Race, Crime, and the Politics of Fear in America. So, Wisconsin taxpayers, how psyched are you about all that? And by the way, I do want to add something. We do joke about so-called global warming here. I'm not going to go into this because we're running out of time. We do joke about that, but it's not like we don't think there are some serious, real environmental problems out there. And one such, and you can read more about this online, is a few stories on this on Drudge Report today. Smog in China. Just Google it. Hey, Brad, I need that card. We got someone to thank here. Again, we're a work in progress here at RSBN. I want to thank, from Stockton, California, West Valley Rubber Stamp. They provided us with materials that are very useful here in the RSBN office. And let me give you their phone number if you need some office supplies. You're anywhere in California or Nevada, I guess, too. Drive anywhere if you want to go there. But the number is 209-475-8878. And you ask for Margaret or Brannon. And thanks for bearing with us on this test run of RSBN tonight. I'm Adam Taxon, and I assume we're doing this tomorrow. Thanks for watching.